she said. I think we should just be friends. My ex needs me more. For a second, I thought I misheard her. We were standing in the parking lot behind her apartment, the same spot where I'd planned to hand her the car key I'd spent weeks saving for. Instead, I slipped it back into my pocket, looked her straight in the eye, and said quietly, "All right, I hope you're happy." No shouting, no begging, no asking why, because I already knew the answer. She looked relieved, like she just put down something heavy, not realizing that what she dropped was the last bit of respect I had left for her. I turned, got in my car, and drove away without looking back. Moments like that can feel unexpectedly peaceful, like finally accepting reality. At the time, I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A few months later, in the dead of night, she appeared at my door, drenched, mascara streaked, and a small crowd behind her filming everything. Emma and I had been together for 3 years. I'm a freelance photographer, the kind who spends half his life chasing light, not people. She was an accountant, stable, measured, precise. In a way, we balanced each other. I brought the chaos. She brought the structure. At least that's what I thought. For a long time, our relationship felt easy. We didn't fight about money or trust or the future. She liked that I was calm. I liked that she was grounded. But comfort has a funny way of becoming invisible until something shinier walks by. That something came in the form of her ex Ryan. The guy reappeared out of nowhere. Suddenly successful, wearing a suit, driving a black BMW, talking about how he'd finally turned his life around. He started messaging Emma, saying he missed her, that he was doing better now that he'd grown up. At first, she told me everything. Said he was just a friend who'd fallen on hard times. But I could tell something in her tone changed. She started talking about him like he was a project to fix, not a person to avoid. Then came the excuses. Working late, helping with a business plan, dinner with an old friend. Every time I wanted to ask more questions, but I didn't. Not because I was naive, but because I wanted to see what she would do when left to her own honesty. Turns out that honesty had an expiration date. One night we were sitting at our favorite diner. Her phone lit up with a message. "Dinner tonight. I need to talk." She tilted the screen away like it burned her. I didn't say a word. I just kept eating. Inside, though, something heavy and final settled in my chest. I knew where this was going. I'd already been planning something for our anniversary, a small silver car she'd been dreaming about for months. She'd mentioned it offhand once, saying, "Maybe one day when things are more stable." I wanted to surprise her, not to impress her, but because I thought it would make her life easier. Funny how you can plan a future with someone who's already halfway out the door. The next evening, she called me over, said she wanted to talk. Her voice was soft, almost rehearsed. She didn't cry, didn't look guilty. She just said the line that started all of this. Her words confirmed what I had suspected. She was leaving not out of necessity, but curiosity. I remember feeling this strange clarity, not pain, not anger, just confirmation. Everything I'd quietly suspected was true. She wasn't leaving because she had to. She was leaving because she wanted to see if the grass was greener. So I smiled, slipped the car key I'd been holding into my pocket, and said, "All right, I hope you're happy." Then I walked away, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was losing anything. For weeks after, I kept waiting for the sadness to hit, but it didn't. I went to work. I edited photos. I slept better than I had in years. Sometimes peace comes simply from letting go. People think heartbreak looks like crying in the dark. But sometimes it's just a guy standing in an empty parking lot, quietly realizing he was never the problem. After that night, I didn't spiral. No drunk texts, no sleepless breakdowns, no long drives past her apartment. I simply moved on. I poured myself into work. I started taking more travel assignments, landscapes, local festivals, portraits of people who still looked alive. My photos started getting traction. A gallery in Portland invited me to do a small exhibit called Stillness. It sold out faster than I expected. It's strange. I could capture calm in photos more easily than heartbreak. Once in a while, mutual friends would mention Emma, uninvited, but always with that tone like they were giving me news I'd secretly been waiting for. She seems happy, they said. She's dating that businessman guy, Ryan. You know, the ex. I just smiled and said what I actually believed. The shiniest things are often the most hollow, and I left it at that. For months, I didn't think about her until out of nowhere, I started hearing whispers. Ryan wasn't who he said he was. Turns out his businesses were nothing but unpaid loans and half-finished scams. He owed money to investors, maxed out credit cards under other people's names, and had a habit of running from city to city every time things got too real. Within a few months, Emma had drained her savings covering Ryan's unpaid loans. She struggled to keep her apartment and job. But eventually, the pressure became too much. Her apartment was lost. She quit her job. And friends noticed bruises she couldn't explain. I didn't feel satisfaction, just inevitability. People who chase illusions always end up tripping over reality. By then, I had my own reality to focus on. Months later, while working on a travel feature in Oregon, I met Leah, the editor overseeing the project. We spent long hours reviewing photos, critiquing captions, and teasing each other over coffee. Slowly, a connection grew, quiet, but undeniable. She was sharp, brutally honest, and allergic to drama. When we first met, she looked at my old camera and said, "You know, this thing's seen more light than most people." I laughed. It was the first time in a long while that someone made me laugh without trying to fix something broken in me. We started working together more. She'd critique my photos. I'd tease her for using too many adjectives in her travel pieces. There was no grand confession, no cinematic moment, just two people who didn't need to prove anything, showing up day after day without pretending to be perfect. And somewhere in between the road trips and late-night editing sessions, I realized something. I didn't miss Emma. I missed the idea of her. The one I built when I thought love meant patience instead of clarity. Then one night my phone buzzed. A number I hadn't seen in months. "Jack? I know I messed up. Ryan's gone. He lied about everything. I lost everything. But I know you still care. Please, can we talk? You still love me, don't you?" I stared at the message for a long minute. Not angry, not nostalgic. I just tired. Then I typed back. "I used to love you, but the person I love doesn't exist anymore." I hit send, blocked the number, and put the phone down. No second thoughts. No regret, because sometimes closure isn't a conversation. It's just finally realizing you don't owe anyone an explanation for walking away from chaos. It happened about 3 months later. One quiet night, Leah slept on the couch, a book open on her chest. I was editing some photos when a violent pounding rattled the front door. At first, I thought maybe it was a delivery gone wrong or a drunk neighbor. But then came the yelling. "Jack, open the damn door! You coward!" I froze. That voice, raw, cracked, too familiar. Emma. When I opened the door, the scene outside didn't feel real. She was standing there, drenched, eyes wild, makeup streaked down her cheeks, and behind her were 3 people, phones out, recording. I could hear the faint clicks of camera shutters and someone whispering, "Keep filming." Emma pointed at me, voice trembling with rage. "You left me. You ruined my life. You did this to me." For a moment, I just looked at her, not in shock, but in disbelief at how far she'd fallen. The same woman who once worried about having the right color palette for her apartment walls now stood in my doorway, screaming accusations like a stranger. I didn't raise my voice. I just asked quietly, "What are you doing, Emma?" She stepped closer, eyes glassy and unfocused. "You think you're better than me now, posting your happy little pictures while I suffer? You abandoned me, Jack. You broke me." Her friends started shouting, too, trying to provoke me. Their phones capturing every angle. It didn't take a genius to realize what this was in a setup. A desperate attempt to make me look like the villain in whatever story she was trying to sell online. Leah appeared behind me, calm as ever, her voice steady. "I'm calling the police," Emma laughed, and a hollow, hysterical sound. "Go ahead, let everyone see what kind of man he really is." But I didn't move. I just stood there, my hands in my pockets, looking at her with the kind of calm that drives unstable people insane. When I finally spoke, my voice was flat, almost gentle. You weren't abandoned, Emma. You abandoned yourself the moment you chose lies over truth for a split second. The words hit her. I could see it in her eyes. Then the mask snapped back into place, and she started screaming again, pounding on my chest as her friends recorded. Leah kept the phone line open until the police arrived. When they did, I stepped aside and showed them the footage from my security cameras, clear as day, her trespassing, yelling, trying to force her way in. The officers looked at her, then at me. One of them sighed, clearly used to this kind of chaos. Ma'am, you need to leave right now. If you come back here, it'll be trespassing. Emma's lip quivered. He's lying. He ruined me. You don't understand. But no one was buying it. Even her friends looked uneasy now, slowly lowering their phones. The officers escorted them away. As she was being led off the porch, Emma turned back one last time, eyes blazing with something between heartbreak and fury. You'll regret this, Jack. You'll regret not saving me. I didn't move. Didn't speak until the patrol car's lights faded down the street. Then I whispered mostly to myself. No, Emma, you're the one already living with regret. I closed the door, locked it, and stood there in the quiet, the echo of rain filling the space where her chaos used to live. Leah slipped her hand into mine and said softly, You okay? I nodded. Yeah, for the first time, I think I actually am. After that night, things finally quieted down. A few weeks later, Leah and I packed what we had and left the city behind. We moved to a small town on the Oregon coast, tucked between foggy cliffs and evergreen hills. I opened a tiny photography studio. Nothing fancy, just white walls, open light, and the smell of salt drifting through the cracked window. No clients chasing trends, no fake smiles for social media, just landscapes, local portraits, and the kind of stillness I'd forgotten existed. Leah freelanced as a travel editor, writing about hidden trails, local artists, and coastal storms. Sometimes she'd sit by the window, laptop on her knees, hair messy from the wind, while I developed film in the back room. We didn't talk much about the past. We didn't need to. Peace doesn't require explanations. Months passed. The studio did well enough to pay the bills, and somehow that felt like success. I deleted most of my social media. Not out of anger, just disinterest. Once you've lived inside someone else's chaos, silence becomes the most beautiful sound in the world. One morning, early spring, I was cleaning the drawer of my desk when my hand brushed against something cold. A single car key still on its original ring, the same one I'd planned to give Emma that night, back when I still believed she was my future. I turned it over in my hand, the metal catching light like a reminder and a ghost at the same time. Leah walked in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You look like you found buried treasure, she teased. I smiled in a way. Yeah, I had bought this once for someone who didn't understand love. Now I thought it might finally start a new story with someone who truly does. She looked at me for a long moment, then set the coffee down, eyes soft. I'll make sure you never regret giving it away again. And somehow I knew she meant it. That evening, we took the car and drove down Highway 101, the ocean to our right, the sun bleeding gold over the horizon. For a while, we didn't say anything. The radio hummed softly, waves crashing against the rocks below. At one point, Leah glanced at me and asked, Do you ever think about her? I thought about it. About Emma's voice, her chaos, the version of myself that tried to fix what was never mine to fix. Then I shook my head. Not really. I think about who I was when I loved her, and how far I've come from that. Leah smiled, reached over, and laced her fingers through mine. The road curved, and for the first time in a long time, the future felt clear. Emma vanished after the incident. Word eventually got around. Unpaid debts, mental health issues, another relationship gone wrong. Her social media disappeared overnight. Some people pied her. I didn't hate her, but I didn't pity her either. I just let it be. Letting go isn't weakness, I told Leah one night as we locked up the studio. Sometimes it's the only way to keep your dignity intact. Healing isn't revenge or forgetting. It's simply finding peace.